Dr. Parrott, welcome to Dad Edge, my friend.
Well, it's a treat to be with you. I'm glad for what you're doing for dads. It's a tough job, so I am glad you're helping dads, and I'm one. So now I'm a fan.
Oh man, yeah, you are speaking my language. A tough job, enjoyable job. At the same time, it's no other job is so enjoyable, so rewarding, and at the same time, it will humble us to our knees.
It really will. There's a great story about president of the University of Texas made a speech about 3 years ago how university president was the hardest job in the world. And it was interesting coming from him because he was the guy who led the SEAL team on the raid on Osama bin Laden. So, this guy had some tough jobs, but he said university president's so tough. And I've said to that, it's nothing compared to being a dad. Dad's the toughest job in the world. Being a university president, I can do that all day long. But being dad, that takes courage and wisdom and energy and grace upon grace upon grace every single day. Oh, but there's nothing more important.
You nailed it, my friend. So I have a question around that. Now that since you said that, I have a question in me that emerged. And explain the dynamics of your family, how many kids you have, and how long you've been married before I ask the question.
Yeah, we've been married a long time. My boy, it's 46, 7 years now. And we in our marriage, we wanted to do a lot of things and travel. And so we had kids late in our 30s. And so we've got a son who is 28 and a daughter who's 27. And they both went to Belhaven and did their degrees. And when they graduated, they were both homeschooled. My wife is a English professor. And so she kind of gave up teaching in order to homeschool them. And so they got like the world's greatest education, although I'd come home at 4:00 in the afternoon and they'd be in their pajamas and I'd go, oh yeah, school uniforms. And, but they got a great education because and my wife always felt bad because we buy all these curriculum books. We didn't do them all. And I said, doesn't matter. Teach them to think, teach them to read, teach them to explore the things they're interested in. And in that, they both were stellar students. And when they graduated, I had scheduled a commencement speaker. I wanted somebody really special. So I'd scheduled a very famous former governor of Mississippi to be their speaker. Well, he got hurt, had an accident, and couldn't do it. So I did their commencement message, and they graduated the same year, even though they were a year apart. So Mary Lou and I got to hand them their diplomas, and I gave their commencement speech. Nobody else gets to do that. So that was pretty fun. They both went on, did master's degrees, and they're doing great.
And that is so cool. So 46, 47-ish years of being married, I've got so many questions about what does it take to have a successful marriage for that amount of time. 28-year-old son, 27-year-old daughter. You mentioned in there before I asked that question, I said I had a question, and you got me really, really curious about why do you say that being a father is actually the hardest job? And by the way, I agree with you, right? It's enjoyable, but man, it's hard, right? So why in your experience, 28 years of being a dad, why is it hard?
Yeah, two things. I'm not trying to accomplish a project with my kids. I'm trying to let them develop a life. And that's different from trying to achieve a certain set of goals. So I go to the university and yeah, we've got goals and things we're trying to do and projects we got to execute. And I can measure those things. But the things that matter most in their life for my kids, I can't measure. Those moments when the other day, we were all locked in because of COVID, and my daughter is suffering. She's the longest suffering COVID long person in America. She's been in bed for over 2 years with COVID long, and so we life's kind of been different. I swung by Krispy Kreme the other day and brought home 2 dozen donuts. We stood around a kitchen table and had a donut party for 30 minutes. That's kind of stuff. I don't know what impact that has on them or doesn't have on them. My my feeling is I knew what that did when my dad would do something like that. And so I want to do that kind of thing. So, but at school, I mean, at the university, I mean, I got people I can call on. I can delegate. I got a certain level of, I can make stuff happen. You tell somebody and they go do it. Yeah, it doesn't work with kids. I've got to respect who my kids are, respect who God is forming them to become, not trying to make them become who I want them to become. So I guess that's the difference. At school, I can make it become what I want it to become. With the kids, I really got to be careful and let God be in charge. God loves them more than I do, which is hard to believe. But as dads, we got to remember that God loves our kids a lot more than we do. And as much as we love and will sacrifice for them, God loves them even more.
Man, I love what you're talking about, my friend. My 15 and 14-year-old, they're at this age right now where they're really curious about their faith, right? And as men and fathers, I identify as the spiritual leader of my home, right? So I need to be prepared for that. I need to have knowledge. I need to guide them. I need to teach them. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with my oldest this past weekend. He and I traveled. We went out of town. And one of the things that we talked about was faith and relationship with God. And I told him, I was like, I look at the relationship with you as I'm your earthly father. You have a heavenly father, right? I was graced and gifted with being your earthly father. So I'm going to do the best job I can with you. But always keep in mind that you have a father here and you have a father there. So, and
good.
He loves you no matter what you do. And so it turned into this really beautiful conversation. So I love that you do that, man.
Cool. Yeah, that's right. That's how it should be. And God's time frame is a lot longer than ours. We want our kids to have faith figured out. We want to have it all nailed down, whatever. I think the challenges of especially adolescence now are tougher than ever. And it takes longer for that development of maturity and that real grounding of faith sometimes to come. And so, I tell parents all the time, don't get discouraged. God is going to bring them back. And, I've seen so many kids who were raised in the church, raised in a Christian home, that was their point of rebellion. And they kind of turned away from it. And time after time after time, because again, I'm a university president, I get to see them as alumni years and years later, they come back. It's amazing how God plants those seeds and they come back. So, dads who are listening, you're planting seeds. Don't worry about if they don't sprout right in front of your eyes. Trust God to fertilize, to water, just puts light on that in his way and his time, and it's going to pay off.
Man, I love that. I want to talk about, your book, Opportunity Leadership. I want to actually go in a couple different directions here. I want to talk about marriage. I want to talk about fatherhood, your book, and obviously Opportunity Leadership. There's skills in that book that you've written about, things that you've written. And in that book, I have no doubt that you've taken some of those things that you've written about, and it's probably some of the learnings that you've learned in marriage. It's some of the learnings you've learned in fatherhood. And so what I really like to do is I'd like to take marriage first. 46 years of being married, the divorce rate right now is 50%. I've said this on the podcast before, but here's the crazy thing. The 50% that stay together, most people don't know the statistics behind that. So they're divided up equally into three camps. Mm-hmm. First camp, 33% of marriages that stay together. They identified it's like, hey, this is great. Everything is, for the most part, everything is working. This is a good spot to be in. I married the right person and this feels great. And we've learned skills to elevate our connection. The next camp is, that's okay. We're kind of surviving. We're kind of settling. Mm-hmm. We don't really have the communication or the connection or the intimacy that we want. We're not necessarily aligned, but it's too expensive to get divorced. I don't even know if I really want to get divorced. I kind of want to stay together. It's too much trouble. But it's all right. And then the final camp is complete emotional, physical disconnection. They're basically strangers living underneath the same roof and they have no connection. They're basically, the two reasons that they don't get divorced is it will put them in too much financial distress, or they have the view of we have to stay together for the kids, but as soon as the kids move out and go to Bellhaven, no I'm kidding, they're done. But for someone who's been married for 46 years, And even looking at this relationship with your wife through the lens of some of the things you've learned, even writing your book, Opportunity Leadership, what are some things that have made you guys successful?
Oh man, it's several things. One is we have, obviously we're deeply in love, always have been, but it's a deep respect too. I respect so much who she is and her unique gifting and her approach to life. And it's different from mine, very different. I want to go outside. I want to do things active. I want to be going. She's be happy as could be reading the Iliad. And, we joke all the time. We don't really have anything in common of any of our interests. And maybe that's what's made it work. I don't know. But I think probably the bigger issue I would say is whether it's marriage or it's kids or it's running a university or running a business, nothing's a straight line of success. And if you always expect the next time to be better than the last time, and there are never some ups and downs, that's when people bail. And that's when they bail on marriages, they bail on churches, they bail on business jobs, they bail during those down times. And there are going to be ups and downs of anything that we do. The overall trend keeps going up. And, I remember when we first got married, I thought, man, we're going to run out of stuff to talk about after about 6 months. And, it hadn't happened. It just gets better year after year after year. But it's a process. It's stages of life. It's realizing that who we are as a couple today is not who we are as a couple in the first 5 years or 10 years or even 50. A few years ago, it changes, and there's stages of life, and how do you adjust with that? So I think it takes an emotional maturity to make a marriage strong. It takes a ton of grace and grace on top of grace. It takes really a willingness to trust God for what's ahead rather than to force it into some package we assume it ought to be. And you related it to the book, Opportunity Leadership, Stop Planning and Start Leading. Start Getting Results is the title of the book. And really the idea is that we tend to plan what that future is. We predict our destinations. And then when we don't hit those, we get frustrated. We either make a new plan or we make plans that are so small that we never really give God opportunity to really bloom in our lives and do great things in our lives. So within a organizational context, a ministry context, a corporate context, I'm calling on people to say, get rid of planning and start trusting God for opportunities, provide some real leadership. I think the same thing is true in the family. It's not, 3 kids in a picket fence and everything came out perfect and all the kids are scrubbed clean. That's not how this works. It's not how it's going to work. And especially, Christian leaders, I don't know of a Christian leader who hasn't had some difficult family challenges with a kid or something going on. And I think it's maybe God's way to keep us all humble, and to know that he's in charge, we're in charge. But having, if you're going to be what I call an opportunity leader, you've really got to genuinely trust God. And what I often say is there's no plan B. People, when I talk about opportunity leadership and I say there's no plan for the university, they'll quietly say, yeah, but what's the plan if that doesn't work? And I say, there isn't a plan. So what's the plan for your marriage? The plan for your marriage is the best God wants it to be. And if people would open up their spirit and their heart to finding the very best God could do as a couple together, I think they might find a new level of marriage that they're not finding when they're trying to force it into a plan that somehow fits a cookie cutter of what a idealistic marriage is all about.
So, wow. So first of all, I love the message, especially for a faith-based person like myself. And I got to be honest, I have a hard time with that sometimes. Meaning, it's the harder I try to control things, the more stressed and anxious I get.
Right.
And there are some times, right, where it's fascinating that you're talking about this right now, because, my son and I, I've been going through a mentorship for the past 2 years called Operation Timothy. And it's a mentorship, and I have a quote unquote Paul who has taken me through this Bible study, and one of my Achilles heels is giving up control. Right. And when I don't know what the unknown is, sometimes depending on what it is that I'm working on, I'm very anxious. Right. And he's like, look, man, he's like, trust in the Lord and not be anxious. He's got your back. All you have to do is ask him to guide you. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But like, I still need to don't I still need to do this and control this and tighten down the latches even more and here and there. And that is very hard for us men to do. It's so hard, right? It's one of those things that I even picture myself in church, a lot of times in church, and I'm asking for guidance, right? And if I'm really honest with myself, Dr. Parrott, what I'm probably asking underneath of that is give me more control.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Give me more control.
You are not alone. You are not alone. I don't know of a caring dad who doesn't feel the same way. Yeah. And we want to, what dads do is fix stuff. Moms nurture, dads fix. And so when something's broken, whether that's a hot water heater or a leg of a kid playing soccer or a relationship or a future, we want to fix it. That's what we do. And so when we can't fix it, then you got to ask, well, where's my value added? Just like we do in anything else. Okay, I can't fix this. There are things in our kids' life, no, we're not going to fix. Only God can fix. And so while we're praying for that guidance, I think your transparency is invigorating, because you're absolutely dead on right. We're praying for guidance, and what we're really praying for is more control. Give me the control that I can fix this. And our prayer, I think, sometimes has to be, help me let go. Help me let go. And, I literally will sometimes, when I'm facing something like that, literally turn palms up with my hands to feel it. I have to let it go. And that is a hard thing for us to do, who are good at fixing things. We've had track record. We know we can do it. Well, there's some things we can't, especially when it comes to our kids, and especially as they get into those teen years and they get into the college years. Sometimes we can't. I had a great experience a number of years ago as an orientation. And this mother saw me. She's getting in her car and she said, well, I tried everything I could. You give it a shot.
Oh my gosh, that is outstanding. Last thing you hear when you get dropped off to college.
Yeah, that's not what I expected.
Oh my gosh.
But letting go of that control is really hard for us. And so we want to nail down that plan, and that plan, execute it one step after another. It's all going to come out right. The best plan we could come up with is pale in comparison to the plan that God has. And God's got a plan for our business, for our ministry, for our church, if you're a pastor, for our kids, for our marriage. God's got a plan. God loves what we love, and he's going to let his fullness come into that. But unfortunately, in our planning, we tend to plan for what we know we can accomplish. God's going to do a whole lot more than that if we'll get out of the way and just trust him to do it. But it's hard. I walk the same walk you do. It's really hard to just let go. And I've had a few times in life with my kids where they were headed in a direction and I couldn't change it. And I go, yeah, I've just got to let go and let them be the person God designed them to be. I'm a third generation college president. And so my father and my grandfather were both college presidents. People often ask me, well, which of your kids is going to be it? And I think that's the last thing that I would ever want to push them into be, but it'd be real easy to try to do because there's a heritage there and it'd make a great plan. But no, that's not what they want to do. And that's not who they are. And that's not their characteristics. And I've got to let go of that and not expect that. That's how it's a struggle every dad faces all the time. I don't think I think it's a problem to be managed, not a problem to be solved. You're always trying to manage this control issue.
So how do you manage that?
In the small things. If you take care of the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. And so I think you've got to do it in the small things. And, whether that's the length of their hair or whatever it is, if you're going to fight over that stuff, if you start fighting about the small stuff, you're really going to lose it in the big stuff.
I agree. I agree. As my two older ones, my 14 and 15-year-old, as they get older, the quote, pick your battles really resonates big time, right? Like, one of the filters that I've run a lot of things through, like, is what I'm about ready to go battle to, is this mission critical? Like, I'll filter it through that. Is this long term? Is this a battle that even is necessary to fight? Right.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
And you mentioned in there, like long hair, that kind of thing. Both my oldest, they're going through this long hair thing. I this past Monday, as we record this show, was Martin Luther King Day, so my kids were off school, and so we took our kids to Cosmic Bowling during the day, and my two younger kids, 8 and 5, they both dressed up as Spider-Man to go bowling. And people around us were laughing, and then other people around us were looking at it like we were weird and crazy. And I'm kind of ashamed to admit this, but at the same time, I think it's normal. When my two older kids would do something like that when they were younger, like before I really understood, I didn't understand things then that I do now. And I would have been like, man, you can't wear that to bowling. Like that would have been me. Right. 10 years ago. Yeah. Man, you can't wear that to bowling. Like, come on, man, go put on some regular clothes.
Yeah. Right.
Now I'm like, dude, okay, listen, there is going to be a very small, finite window of time where my kids are going to be super excited to dress up as Spider-Man to go bowling.
Yep.
And I want to embrace that, right? Because this is cool. This is funny. This is part of them being an individual. This is part of them growing and being, identifying their identity, or in their case, secret identity. As my 8-year-old refused to take off his mask, he's like, if I take off my mask, everybody will know who I really am. Like,
that's great.
Seriously, his words, I can't take this off. People will know who I really am. And, but like, I smiled at that because I was looking at my two older boys and how I've evolved. And I'm like, man, that's not even a battle that's on my radar. In fact, I don't even look at it as a battle. I embrace it now because it's part of them evolving and growing and finding out who they are. Right.
Right.
And who am I to get in the way of that? Right. Yeah. Who am I to get in the way of my 14-year-old's crazy hairstyle right now that I'm just like, holy cow, man, this is like off the charts crazy.
Right.
But it's only going to be here for a certain amount of time. So I have to allow that room for him to grow and for him to identify, right. And not feel so restricted with things.
Exactly. And it's only, my son has long hair too. And as my wife says, it's only hair. And, so what? And he loves it. And that's great. And let him do it. Right. And, but it's so easy to make those things, to try to control those things. But what kids are doing, especially at that age, is they're trying to separate from their parents. So they're finding ways to do that. So you can either embrace that and have fun with it and let them do that, or you can wait till they really rebel in some way that's much more harmful to them. And, we see that a lot where substance abuse or sexual promiscuity or other kinds of things that can really hurt them. And they'll rebel in that kind of way. It's much better to take the green hair and the Spider-Man suit and all the fun stuff that goes with that and let them be themselves.
Yeah.
Let them be themselves.
You know what?
It's hard.
I didn't expect to go in this direction at all, but you just said something that really, really emerged. And I'm curious because I want to serve the men right now who have these kids in this age range of, like, call it from 8 to 12 or even the teenagers. Right. Mm-hmm. And we're always on the lookout, right? We have more helicopter parents, I think, these days than any other generation, right? Like the way when I grew up, the rule was come home at dinner. There were no GPS. There were no cell phones. Like, if it's dark, I'm going to scream out of my window for you to come home. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, we tend to keep our kids on a pretty tight leash in some way, shape, and form, and we tend to control a lot of things. But I would really like to know, just in your experience, I mean, obviously you're the president of Belhaven College. You've seen a lot of students, a lot of kids come through, a lot of different traits, a lot of good characteristics, a lot of bad. And are there things that you've noticed about how parents are raising their kids where a kid then makes a decision where he's like, you mentioned drug use, promiscuity, alcohol abuse, like all these different things that they'll really, really rebel, right? And then we have these kids, right, that are just like, they're off and they're really doing well, right? And they're on a really good path and they're doing the right things. We have kids that are maybe middle ground, right? Maybe they're making a few bad decisions, right? But they're also going back into that path of like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still on the right path. Is there anything that you have found just in the way parents raise their kids from that younger age? They do a few things right to make sure that they set that kid on that correct trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm probably not the answer on that because I don't engage with the parents as much as I do kind of with the students and see those issues. I think probably the ones who do the best are where parents stay engaged. And I always tell parents at orientation, you're not done. This is not a handoff. We want you engaged. And I always tell them we like helicopter parents. We'd prefer you not be an attack helicopter, but if you be a helicopter, that's a good thing. Right. So I encourage families to stay engaged, know what's going on. But, I like what our friend Tim Elmore says so well. He says, prepare the kid for the path. Don't prepare the path for the kid. And to me, I think that really summarizes it well. The ones who do best are the parents who prepared the kid for the path. The ones who've tried to clear the path for the kid are the ones who tend to have trouble. And that's not an absolute, but that's kind of been my reflection over the years. The ones who just kind of let them do it completely on their own struggle as well. You got to walk alongside them, but let it be their path. Be a step behind to catch them when they need it.
I got you. So when I have conversations with my boys, right, around some of these topics, like where we're identifying a path that they're going down, right, and it could be not such a good one. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I tell my boys, I'm like, listen, there are times where you're going to feel like I'm your buddy, right? But I'm actually not.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to have a good relationship. We're going to be highly connected. We're going to have laughs. We're going to hang out, but I'm not your friend. Right. I'm here as your father. I'm your guide. I'm your Sherpa. I'm your coach. Right. And it's my job to help you point out blind spots, right? Keep you accountable. Maybe give you a glimpse of, if you're walking down a certain path, where that probably is going to lead. Right. And that's why I'm not your friend, even though, like, hey, we hang out, we work out, we do fun things, but I'm your father.
Yeah.
When it comes to parents and us being, the word that emerged for me when you were talking was maybe more of a Sherpa or a guide, right? Like the ones that help the guys get up Everest, right?
Yeah.
They're like, listen, we're going to go and I'm going to give you trajectories. Like, this is your choice. There was a documentary that I saw where this guy, he went up with a Sherpa, and the Sherpa and the guide who is on base camp was watching him. And he's like, dude, you've run out of time. You can't get to the summit. You can't, you just can't do it. Right. And the guy started climbing anyway. And he was talking to him the whole time. He's like, if you do not come down now, you are going to die. Like, there's no other way to put it. Okay. And the Sherpa had even left him. So, if you think about us, our role as parents, and then this guide, right? The Sherpa didn't tackle the guy and bring him down and like, you're not doing this. But I think what really emerged for me as you were talking was like, we as parents, as guides, not necessarily controlling, but it's a slippery slope as well. Have you noticed that?
Very much so. Yeah, no. And I love your illustration. And I'm like you. I've watched every documentary on Everest there ever is, I think. And those Sherpas, that's an amazing group of people. But yeah, it is a slippery slope, because once the nature of the relationship becomes confrontation instead of support, you lose your ability to influence and to guide. And so, it comes, I think you said it earlier, but it comes back to the mission. What's the mission here? And, when in an organizational setting, I would always look at mission and gifting and capacity, those three things. What's our mission for capturing opportunities? What's our gifting? What are we best at? And what's our capacity? When it comes to the kids and family, I think it's somewhat the same thing. Every dad's not the same way. My kids wouldn't go work out with me. They don't like doing that. They don't like doing the stuff I do. So it's a different kind of relationship. I think we've all got to figure out what's our gifting, what's our way, and what is the big mission we're trying to accomplish. What we're trying to do is get them into God's hands and get them into the life that God designed for them, not the life that we designed for them. And how do we do that? Everybody does it differently. But if we can keep our eye on the prize and not our eye on our role in it simply, I think we do a lot better.
I love that, man. Thank you for that. That was such a good demonstration of those boundaries, right? Mm. What I'd like to move into next. I've never had a guest like you on the podcast. Honestly, right out of almost 900 episodes now. And meaning I've never had anybody who is able to come on and talk to us about how to guide your kids into the decision of college, whether it's community college, whether it's Christian-based college, whether it's, here's the funny thing. I had this idea, and I'm sure a million other people had the exact same idea, but my wife and I were talking about this years ago, and I was like, I changed my major 3 times. I was on the 5-year plan because I changed my major 3 times. Not only that, but who the heck was I at 18 thinking that I knew exactly what I was going to do for the rest of my life? Like, it was just very odd. I was like, I wonder if there's a program out there that you could take your top 5 things that you're most interested in doing. Like, if you want to be a doctor, for 4 weeks, you get to go shadow this doctor or surgeon. If you want to be a lawyer, you get to go shadow this lawyer, a day in a life, right? For an extended period of time, just to get a really good gauge on what do these people actually do. And I remember, trying to figure out where I want to go to school, a college. And I was like, God, do I do community college? Do I major in psychology? That was my first degree. Do I get a minor in Spanish? Because it's kind of cool to know 2 languages. I'm more employable if I do. Then I went, more social work. And then I finally chose health management. But I was completely and totally overwhelmed by what to do, even what college to pick. Now, here I am, right? My kids, we've already had conversations around colleges and choices. And they're like, how do I choose? And I'm like, I got to be honest, man. I don't know. Oh, I don't have a clue. And I told my 15-year-old this. I was like, here's what I think is going to happen, because this is probably the way of the world. And I think you're 15 now and you're a freshman, so it's not on my radar. You're going to turn around, you're going to be a senior, and we're going to be like, holy crap. Now we need to scramble to make the right decision. And I don't even know what the questions are. Yeah. So what does that even look like? It feels overwhelming. So critical. And you're right. Too many scramble at the last minute and they don't know the questions. And that's part of the challenge. Most families get to do this, 2, maybe 3 times. In your case, you're going to do it 4 times with 4 kids. And even with 4 times, you don't know the questions. And so, I encourage families to figure out those right questions. And I try to help them with that because, whether or not they come to Belhaven, that's in God's hands. And that's okay. I want them to make the right choice. And so here's the criteria I give them. 2 criteria. Number 1 is when they're visiting a campus, it's not, is this a pretty campus and I like it? And unfortunately, a lot of research tells us that most students decide whether or not they want to go to a campus within the first 10 minutes of the campus visit. And that essentially means that they like the look of the place. Well, that's a real bad way to make a life direction decision. And so don't do that, but it needs to be nice. How the campus looks does just tell you what they care about, that kind of stuff. But, and it's not major,
because a lot of students change their major. You gave your story, which is terrific. I started in history, wound up in psychology. I'm spending my life in education. So, and I got some things, if we got a minute, I'll tell you about a major option that we got, which is really pretty special. But so people choose major, then they choose, well, I'm going where my friends go. Well, you know what? College is very, very busy. And when the friends you go with won't be your friends after the first year. I can guarantee it.
That
because
is so
you're
true.
going to be into other things. You're going to be into activities that are required in your major or your sport or your art or your clubs. And you'll make a different set of friends. So that's a really bad reason to go, other than it will make you more comfortable that first freshman orientation week, because you'll know some people. So people make it on those decisions. And then, and those are all, they're not unimportant, but they're not the real decision. And then they get these view books from schools, and you're probably starting to get them if you got a 15-year-old. Once they take an SAT test or an ACT test, you get on everybody's list, and we all send you these big fancy brochures, and they all say the same thing. You can almost change the names. It says you're important to us, and you're not a number, and we've got the greatest faculty ever, and here's every award there ever is in higher education. We want it. And they've all got a picture of a student playing a guitar sitting by a lake, and a lot of those schools don't even have a lake. We actually have a lake, and we have a guitar, and we pose the same picture. So let's get past all that stuff. Here's the criteria, 2 criteria. Number 1, are these the kind of people I would like to be like? And as you're talking to faculty, to students, and you're visiting campus, ask that. Because most of these schools in higher education, unfortunately, have shifted their focus, and especially the secular schools, the big flagship schools, are focused on 4 priorities that I label. They all begin with the letter S: size, sizzle, sports, and status. And those are the things that drive those schools. And if you look at what is important to them, where they spend their money, where they put their message, it is in size, sizzle, sports, and status. A place like Belhaven is very different. I would characterize us with 4 C's: character, caring, community, and Christ. Character, caring, community, and Christ. Now, as you visit a campus, you're going to meet people, and you're going to start to see those values come through. And you want to say, do I want to be like those people? Because that's the nature of higher ed. We're not going to clone you, but you're going to tend to take on those characteristics. So that's criteria number 1. So criteria number 2 is more specific. And that's this: ask what they require of all students. College students are very, very busy. They don't have a lot of time where everybody can do any one thing. And because every department has requirements in sports and arts and whatever. So what they require of everybody tells you what they value. So let me illustrate that with Belhaven. At Belhaven, we require a freshman course called BU 101, and that course is designed to understand your gifts. And we look, you talked about, could I figure out what these different careers are? We do an examination of your motivations. We want to identify what motivates you in life. If we can understand your motivations, then we can help get you the right career. So we're going to do the career stuff, but we're going to go earlier than that. We're going to look at your gifts and your motivations, because God designed everybody different. So we're going to start with that course to help you be successful in college and life. Second thing we're going to require is our sophomore year, we require what we call our worldview curriculum, where we take history, literature, philosophy, and great biblical themes, and we tie those together in a core curriculum where you see the big ideas of our Christian worldview develop over time and how those stand up to the test of life. The third thing we require of everybody is chapel. We have chapel on Tuesdays. I lead chapel personally because it's that important that we come together as a campus once a week, just for an hour, to worship and to have that shared worship experience. And the fourth thing we require, which I think would be especially interesting to you and your audience, is that we require a course called Kingdom Life and Work, which is designed to help students understand how to balance their career with their family. And we're one of only 2 schools in America that requires a course in marriage and family of all students. The other one being Brigham Young. And so By that, you can tell what we value by what we require. We value gifts, we value worldview, we value worship, we value the family. And you take the same criteria to any school, ask them what they value, what they require. It tells you what they value. And if they don't require anything of everybody, I'd be especially cautious because they don't have a value system. So those are the two criteria I would tell families to look at. And then you get into the whole question of the money, which is really complex. We don't have time, but I can show families how they can save $60,000 by coming to Belhaven instead of going to a state university. Go on our website. I wrote a 17-page paper called The Real Cost of College. And you can get it. It'll tell you if you want to go to community college, well, what are the pros and cons of that? If you want to go to a state school, what are the pros and cons of that? Look at what we can do. Again, there are some opportunities out there, especially post in COVID, that are pretty remarkable. I'm giving to every one of our students right now, every one of our traditional undergraduate students, we're giving them a free master's when they graduate, an online free master's. That's $15,000 to $25,000 right there. And they can take that anytime after they graduate. I talked to a prospective student the other day who's going on to med school. And I said, after that, go do the master's in leadership. It'd be great for you as a doctor and a medical professional. So we're doing that. There's things like that. I don't know if that one's around because nobody's copied us. The other thing we're doing comes back to your original question, which is interesting, is that I got concerned about these students not having a broad enough education, especially we do a lot with students in the arts. We're the top Christian college in the arts, and I want them a broader education. So we decided for every student who comes as a freshman, if they double major and the double major pushes them into their 5th year of study, they come tuition free. And so they don't pay any more money to get a double major. So I talked the other day to a dancer who's also majoring in biology. I know of a business student who's also majoring in communications. You can put anything together you want with education or nursing or STEM or whatever. I just think a broader education and for our students, a free master's degree, just got to put them in a different position for a very chaotic, dramatically changing world out there. So, this is a huge decision. Parents need to be engaged. Don't turn this over to your 17-and-a-half-year-old to make the most important decision of their life other than their faith. Be a partner in that process. Be the Sherpa. I like your message. I like the vision of that. Be the Sherpa to go along. Yes, at the end of the day, they've got to make that decision. They've got to own it. But you've got to be there, engaged with it, and to ask the right questions to really pick the right school.
I love that. I took a whole page of notes while you were talking. I'm not kidding. It's so funny. So when you talked about the first 10 minutes and the way it looks, I actually wrote that down. I remember. So we drove our kids actually to Mississippi to pick up a dog a few years ago. And then we drove through Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Southeast Missouri State, where my wife and I graduated from. And we loved it there, and my kid, I was like, hey, we're going to show you our dorm room. We're going to show you our college campus. And it was so funny. My boys got out and they're like, this is where you went. This is gross. This is terrible. And the funny thing is that it's aged a little bit. It's still a decent campus, but I remember going there and be like, wow, this is like so big and cool and awesome. And my kids are like, this sucks. I would never come here. Like, right. The other thing too is,
great.
Go where your friends go. Me and my college roommate were really good friends before we went to college together. After the first year, we went in totally separate directions. Mm-hmm. He had his own group of friends. I had my own group of friends. Yep. And I remember like, oh, this is great. Like, we're going to be friends forever. And that didn't last long. Like, we were still acquaintances, right? We're still roommates, but two totally different worlds.
It happens every time, every single time. And families are making this decision on where the friends go. It's crazy. Right. Just crazy.
I have one more question for you around being a Sherpa for our kids. So like, for instance, gosh, man, even thinking of the question, like I realize how inexperienced I am being that Sherpa, that guide for my kid. So when my 15-year-old comes to me, and let's fast forward till he's 17, right? And he's looking at me, he's like, Dad, I don't know where I want to go to school. I don't know what I want to do. right? And I know the generic answer for a lot of parents out there, or at least in my generation, just get your degree in business. You can do anything. Right? Get your degree in communication. You can do anything. Right. And I'm just like, but to be really honest and just to be completely transparent, I have no clue whatsoever how to guide him and help him find like, what is it that you would love to do or you're curious about?
Yeah. Get his degree in whatever his passion is. I don't care what the degree is. My daughter was a theater major, and I have told Madison many times, I don't care if I do care if she goes on stage because she loves it so much, but it taught her teamwork. It taught her how to be confident in herself. It taught her how to be articulate on her feet. It taught her how to think. It taught her how to solve problems. It taught her a lot of great things. It's not just about being an actor. But that was her passion. So she was motivated to learn it. I don't care what a student's passion is. As they're motivated to learn it, they're going to get the most out of it. And then, but most students, they'll always say, yeah, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. They're not really sold out to it as freshmen. And that's okay. Come take a general core curriculum. God will make it clear. We don't serve a God of that's not clear. He'll going to make it clear, and you'll figure out as you get into college life what you're good at, what you're gifted at, and you'll say, well, that's easy. I don't have to work hard at doing math. Well, that's because you're really good at it, and so maybe that's where you ought to be. But whatever students find, I find you can do almost anything. Careers have changed so much. You can do almost anything out of any major anymore. Unless it's highly, highly specialized, like nursing or something. That's a different world. But also for tomorrow's marketplace, for college educated people, a master's is almost going to be required, going to be required across the board. And, but I find students are ready when they're ready. Everybody's not ready for college right out of high school. And that's okay. It's not the end of the world. At the same time, it's difficult to get back into a learning mode if you go out and work a while, especially if you get a car and you get debt and other kinds of things. You can tend to lose the window. So it's balancing where that window is and where really, stopping out may work. Just be careful if you do it. Have a little bit more of a structure around it if you do that. But again, let them find their passion, whatever it may be. Families don't need to worry about, well, I got to get them into business so they can make money. No, they can make money from any degree that there is. It doesn't matter.
It's so funny you mentioned that. So when I first went away to college, we were raised in this generation, my mom was raising me. She's like, you got to go get your degree in business. You have to. And I'm like, I have no desire to do that. Like, that sounds terrible to me. And I took my general ed, undergrad classes, like Econ 101. I was like, oh, for the love of God, just let me get past this class so I can take something else. Right. Mm-hmm. But I'll never forget when I told my mom what I was getting my degree in. So I got my degree in health management with an emphasis in exercise science and a minor in nutrition. Yeah. And she looked at me, she's like, you're getting a 4-year degree to be a personal trainer. Are you kidding me? And I was like, no. I was like, yeah, that's one area I could go in for sure. I was like, but no, I want to do corporate wellness. I grew up as an overweight kid, really overweight. Mm-hmm. And then I found fitness at 16, 17 years old, lost about 60 pounds. I fell in love with health. I fell in love with wellness. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get enough of it. Like, I actually loved going to class. Like like working and getting a minor in nutrition. I was like, oh man, teach me this stuff all day long. Like, I loved it. Yeah. And then I graduated college. This is so funny, man. This is so funny. So I'll never forget senior year of college. We're about ready to do our internship. And I remember my advisor telling us like, hey, you guys are getting ready for for basically your 140-hour internship. Many of you guys are going to go to different companies and blah, blah, blah. He's like, and you got to show up early. You got to stay late. And then after the internship, you have to hope that they're going to offer you a position for about 30 or 35,000. And I'm like, wait, what? And I was like, I owe 50,000 in debt. Like, how am I even going to live? Right. And so it was really funny at the time. In order to even get through school, I worked 36 hours a week. And I was a full-time student. I was a personal trainer. And the funny thing is I've always loved people. I've always loved I just embrace communication and talking and learning about people. And I had a couple of my clients that were in the medical device industry as salespeople. And they're like, dude, like, if you ever thought about getting into sales, you're great with people. Like, you're great at motivating people. You're great at problem solving. And I'll never forget, I went on a ride along with a guy who is in medical device sales. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Right. I loved it. And I did that for nearly 20 years before I started doing this full time. And the funny thing is I never really used my degree. But the degree gave me so much to me personally, right? Because I learned more about my mental health, my emotional health, my well-being, how to take care of myself, which catapulted me. I swear that was a great foundation into doing what I even continue to do now, because it still serves me. Yeah. But I'll never forget that, my mom saying, so you're paying 50 grand to be a personal trainer. And she was so disappointed.
If you look at college as skills training, it's you're going to be disappointed. It's not skills training. It's life development. It's that learning how to learn. It's that intellectual curiosity. It's the ability to critique and to analyze. It's the ability to think and to articulate. It's all those kinds of things. That's what we're teaching. Yeah, we build it around disciplines of something, but that's really what we are. So your experience is so on target for what a good education should be. And when you find that thing that you love and you can't wait to get enough of, that's when education really becomes dynamic. I mean, the problem to me of education in America is that nobody wants their money's worth. And if we wanted our money's worth, we would fix the education problem. I mean, if classes get canceled because of snow day, everybody goes, yay, yay. If the test is easy, they go, oh, that's a great teacher, whatever. No, demand to get your money's worth. If I have iPad and it doesn't work half the time and some of the features don't work, I'd be running back to Apple Store. In education, we go, this is great. Senior year of high school, we kind of blew it off. Isn't that great? No, it's not. Demand to get your money's worth. This is your life. This is your future. A good college degree, you'll earn $2.5 to $3 million more than somebody without it. You're making a huge investment. And there's some, the debt thing you mentioned, my students are graduating about $25,000 worth of debt, and we show them how to manage that. But there's a debt issue. But if it's done right, there's no better investment you can make than in your mind and in your spirit and your heart, and preparing you to do a lot of different things. I mean, most people are not going to just go into one career and that's going to be it. And they're going to go to one company and start with that $35,000 job and just stay that, especially this generation. And most of this generation wants to do their own thing. They don't want to go work for corporate.
Yep. Man, Dr. Parrott, this has been so cool. I don't know if you can tell, but I've been like eager to have a conversation like this, because I'm starting to have these little conversations, and I've been looking at my kids like they have two heads. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really sure how to guide you on this one. I know what my experience was, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your experience. Yeah. But this has been so clear. Like I said, full page of notes here.
I'm so glad. Hey, and for your listeners, I mean, some of this stuff is on our website. If they want to go to it at belhaven.edu, they can get it there. And also, if I can be of help, write me, call me. For our prospective students, I give them all my home phone number. As I tell them, I wouldn't send my kid to a school where I couldn't get a hold of the president if I had trouble. And if the president won't give you their number, I'm not sure I'd go there. So I give it to our students, and I want to be accessible. I mean, my calling in life is to help them succeed and help their family grow and develop. And when that student succeeds, everybody in the family succeeds. I do something kind of fun at graduation every year. When we have graduation, I say, in a moment, your student's name is going to be called. You're going to come across the platform, and we want the family, the people who have been supportive and behind this. We want you to stand as well as your student comes across. And I always say, because we want to honor you, and you can get a better picture, because it really is a family thing. And I love it when they come across and they're cheering. And, we've got a big online program as well. And we got master's degrees and undergraduate degrees online. And so our adult students come across, and kids are shouting out, Mom and Dad, they're proud. I mean, education, if it's done right, is the thing that catapults our life, so that, our Sherpa can get us up Mount Everest.
Oh man, I love the analogy. What a way to end. I love that. I want to make sure that you obviously already mentioned bellhaven.edu. Where can, I guess, people, best way to find you, whether that's on social media, whether that maybe that's on the college website, or if they have, your book, that kind of thing, where can people find you?
Yeah. They can get me on bellhaven.edu, and I'm real easy to find, or on the book website, which is opportunityleadership.com. Just all one word, opportunityleadership.com.
Hey, nice work at nailing down that website, that domain. Good job for
That's
that.
the first thing you do when you write a book is go get the website anymore.
Ooh, I'm glad you said that. I literally just got done with my first draft of my book, and I sent it over to the publisher. I better make sure that domain.
Good for you. Yeah, get the website in a hurry.
That's right. Well, gentlemen, hey, you're not going to have to look far for Dr. Parrott's handles, as well as all of his links and his book. We'll have that in the show notes for you. All you have to do is go to thedadedge.com/Friday39. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday39. Dr. Parrott, this has been awesome, man. Thank you for the clarity. This was so timely in my life.
What a treat for me. Thank you for all you're doing. God is using you far beyond what you'll ever measure this side of heaven.
Oh man, gosh, you just blessed my heart. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary. Take care.